Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James. Here we like to explore the world of fountain pens, ink, and paper. And today, it's fountain pen day. This is the Diplomat Viper. Well, actually, that's not true. This is a box which contains a Diplomat Viper. This is the latest pen from Diplomat, a small business that's been making pens in Germany since 1922. So 102 years of experience making fountain pens. And do they know what they're doing? Well, I think yes, they do. The Diplomat Arrow is one of my favorite pens. The Diplomat Magnum is often people's first fountain pen and a very good affordable option. And now we have this Viper, and I think you're going to like what we find in the box. When we open up this sleek black box, what do we find? We find a really great looking fountain pen with some serious knurling going on. Now this is the blue model. They also offer this pen in black, which I do think looks really good as well, but the blue, well, I mean, come on. How was I going to resist the blue? I did try to buy the black pen. It was actually in the shopping cart for a little while, but no, I couldn't do it. Had to go back and go for the blue. And I'm really glad that I did. Now underneath this, by the way, you will find a warranty card because Diplomat does stand by their pens. So make sure you fill that card out and validate your warranty. Now the Viper here is quite the sleek pen. And as I mentioned, it has this knurling effect in the way that it was machined, but it's not, as it might look from back here, a diamond pattern. When you look up close, you find that these are actually swirly lines next to each other, really nicely machined, very detailed, and nice deep grooves. Now just to show you how good this knurling is, this is the Hongdian Black Forest in the Blue Light of Hope edition, and I like the knurling on this pen, but as you can see after looking at that Viper, it's pretty flat, pretty shallow, not as detailed. Now this is a diamond pattern rather than those swirly lines, but you can see a definite difference in the way the pen is done. If I put them side by side, it really becomes night and day, the difference between the quality of the knurling on these two pens. And it's not that this one is bad, it is that this one is superb. That's the way I would put that. And I think the anodizing looks much better on this pen as well, as it should. You're paying in a different price class and higher quality control. Diplomat has, from what I understand, about 17 employees. The CEO mentioned that in a recent Applebaum interview. And according to their website, the pens are going to be made by one of 8 craftsmen. So you pay more, but you're getting old school craftsmanship from a small business in Germany. And of course, that does cost a little bit more. Just ask their accountant. But this is a really nice, high quality pen. It is my second metal pen from Diplomat, and I have been nothing but pleased with both of them. Now let's go over the styling, and we will start, of course, at that finial, which in this case is the Diplomat logo stamped into the pen. Looks really good. They've given this a glossy finish in contrast to the matte finish of the body of the pen, and I think that looks really good. I'm going to move it around the light so you can catch the shades of that blue as the light plays off that finish, and the logo looks really, really good. You come down the pen, of course you have that clip which is in that matching gloss finish, and I think that stands out again really nicely. Really thin, sharp point, looks good. A little bit stiff, but it works just fine. And then you have the trim ring, which of course says Diplomat, and as I turn that around, it says Diplomat again. It doesn't say Viper. Now the cap, by the way, is magnetic, okay? So it's a really quick, slick, and let me let you hear that snick. Look at that. Don't you love that? Love that sound. Really, really well done. And I have had no issues whatsoever in dry out. As I mentioned, I've been using this pen for right at 5 weeks, and not once has the pen dried out. So that's good. There is a plastic sleeve inside, and it works. Making this, by the way, a really good pen in a meeting because it's just, there's no twists, no turns, just a quick, and then you can put that back as quietly or as commandingly as you want to. Come on down that barrel, and it tapers, and again, look how the light plays off both the anodizing and the knurling. I really, really like that, and I like the contrast of the band. And then you come down to the bottom, and it is a matte finish, so that also contrasts with the glossy trim. Now the pen does post and very nicely balanced if you do. However, the pen body is nice and long, so for most hands, this is going to be a really great fit. Perfectly balanced when unposted. And one thing I like about hooded nibbed pens is it has a long section, so you can find your little Goldilocks spot there for sure. If you are a high holder, you don't have to worry about any step downs. That trim and everything is all finished well. No sharp points, no edges or anything like that. And it's just, again, very comfortable in hand and a nice writing pen. Also, I really like the profile of this. That nice sharp curve to the nib, and it's just a little bit longer than some other pens that have that same style, making it look just slightly, I don't know, sleeker. It just looks really, really good to me. And the finish on the metal section, and it is metal section, is matte, and so it is not slippery, at least to my hands. Your mileage may or may not vary. Opening up the pen, it is metal on metal threads. It does have an included converter, and it does use international standard cartridges and converters. All right, so just a really sleek looking pen, and one more time, that magnetic cap. That's almost like a fishing lure to some of you out there, isn't it? Just catches you every time. All right, quick size comparison. There is the Diplomat Viper next to the Diplomat Arrow. Both these pens are aluminum and anodized and really fantastic pens. And then you have another hooded nibbed pen, and this is the 2021 re-release of the Parker 51. Now I say re-release, that's probably not quite right. I think they called it a reissue, and it's really neither of those things. This is a modern twist or a modern warping, depending on your point of view, on the Parker 51. And then the venerable Lamy 2000, a pen that competes there within the German market and has for a long time, and the only one in this lineup that would have a gold nib, which we'll talk about here in just a second. All right, and here are the pens in their posted length, ready to write. You can see it's very similar in length to that Parker 51 reissue, and not that far off of the length of the Lamy 2000, and the arrow coming in the longest there. And you'll also notice that my arrow does not have a Diplomat nib, and that is not by choice but by necessity. I dropped it during a cleaning incident a couple of years ago, but I did at least stay German. That is, a Nimesine nib from Birmingham Pen Company writes really well in that Diplomat arrow, and I think the nib decoration there is pretty cool too. And set end to end down here, we can see that in the unposted length, the Viper then regains some ground, offering most writers plenty of pen. Now the nib on this pen is not a fine or a medium. It is a fine medium. And I think they've pretty much hit what that means to most people. I would say it leans more to fine, Western fine, than to medium. Although now that I've said that, I had that Lamy 2000 out earlier, and mine is a fine, and it is a thicker line than this. Wetness, I think, is quite good for the size and type of nib that it is. Ink today is Lamy. I didn't have any Diplomat ink on hand, and this is actually the Lamy Cliff. It's one of their special inks this year. And this is the 24 version. And basically, this ink is kind of like a blue-black, but with a slightly purple hue. Now, where the nib goes, it is a stiff nib. It's a steel nib, but you can get just a little bit of variation if you try gently there. See, that's not too bad, is it? Nib seems nice and smooth. There might be a slight sweet spot, but that could also just be because sometimes with a hooded nib, it's easy to turn, and it could just be that every now and then I've turned more than I realized. Now, I mentioned that I would talk about the nib. So the nib is a steel nib, obviously very hidden behind that hooded grip. And in a recent interview on Applebaum, the owner and CEO of Diplomat mentioned that right now it is only going to be available in steel. And a lot of it has to do with the price of gold and how much it's gone up in the last couple of years. And they really wanted to keep this pen in a certain price range. Now, I've noticed that this week, the time when I'm filming this, the pen varies from about $80 to $100. I think it really competes in that window as far as the quality goes, how it writes, the materials, the finish, all of that, and that it's made by a small business of about 17 people in Grunewald, Germany. I think that's actually quite competitive. There's certainly a lot of pens made in Western Europe that this pen will absolutely compete well with on quality and writing experience. And again, you're supporting a small business and one that does take care of its customers. I mentioned earlier I had to get customer service on my Magnum. I judge a company, whether it's pens or anything else, very much by how they treat the customers that buy their least expensive products. And this is definitely one of my tests of pen companies in the fountain pen world. How do you treat the least of these? How do you treat the least of your customers? Because I don't care how you treat somebody who's buying a $500 pen, a $1,000 pen, or a $2,000 pen, and how you give them the soft glove treatment. What I care about is how do you treat the person who's spending $20, $30, $100 on a pen, and to them it's more sacrifice than that customer who came in and whopped down $750. How do you treat them and how do you follow up with them? Because that tells me more about your company's values and about your character and about what you really think of the market that you're in than how you treat those higher paying customers. That's a principle I pretty well apply across the board. If the only well-paved roads in your town are the ones next to the country club, I know your mayor and I know what he or she is really about. And I say that because Diplomat passed the test. When I contacted them about a problem with a very inexpensive pen that I even bought on sale, they backed it just as they would if it was this Viper or something higher up their chain. And because of that, I was willing to go back for the Arrow and for the Viper. So I give them a shout out for that. Oh, I talked so long that the nib dried just a little bit. I bet that's not the first time. I like me some cheese in any language. All right, now let's do our speed test and see how this holds up. Now, as I mentioned, I'm pretty bad about rolling, so I will try and focus and keep that from happening, but no promises. Try to sort out what's me and what's the pen here. Ready? Let's go. This is always in real time so that okay, what's he really doing? Hey, I didn't roll and it didn't skip. I'm not seeing any real issue. There's a little bit of a light mark there, but it kept up, did well, passes the speed test. As you can see there, like I said, I've not had any dry out issues with the pen. It's been very, very reliable, pleasant writing pen. Pros and cons, pros, just a terrific looking pen. It just is sleek. That magnetic cap is also really cool with that snick as the magnet pulls it closed, and it does a good job. That's a durable pen. I think you're getting a really nice pen for the money, and I do think that this is a wonderful gift, Christmas gift, holiday gift, graduation gift. If I found that in my stocking, I sure wouldn't have been disappointed. Really, really nice pen, and I like the style. Of course, style is going to be a personal preference issue. Again, that knurling is really nicely done. Give you one last look at that up close. I really do like that, and I think they've done a great job. Any downsides? I really haven't run into any. I've had no problems and put it through 5 weeks of writing, and I haven't had an issue yet. And that, for me, is probably the best endorsement that I can give you, because sometimes even the best pens have a little hiccup here and there, but this one has had none. All right, what do you think? Would you pick black or blue? Is there a color you would love for Diplomat to bring out next? I would assume this is the kind of pen where they might offer more colors down the road like they have with the Arrow. What color would you like to see the Viper in? And do you like or not like hooded nibs? Those are not universally liked, but they're definitely universally liked right here at this desk. And with that, God bless you. Have a great week and enjoy your pens.